Welcome
You don't need that.
to the Finance Committee meeting, October 17th. We have quorum. I am Lori Davis. If you will please introduce yourselves.
Greg McDowell.
Bill Anderson.
Sue Ward.
Neil Kerr.
Megan Teller.
James Drury.
Donna Osborne.
Tom Clow.
Tammy Hagman.
Thank you very much.
I heard it.
I think tonight, the first thing is to discuss the fact that we were hoping CIP could present tonight, but they need to go to Planning Board first. So it was Jack Dearborn's request that we pick a date as soon as possible for him to come in. He wants to get the CIP presentation done as soon as possible. Neil, can you tell me, when does Planning Board meet?
We have another meeting on the 25th.
So anytime after the 25th.
Troy, I think that he wants to present to the Board of Selectmen first, too.
He told me he wants a meeting ASAP,
Yeah, check it out.
because I talked to him 2 days ago.
Do you have anything different? Well, we're not done putting the thing together. And as I said at the meeting, the CIP meeting, it has a path to follow. At the CIP meeting, did you make most of it? At the CIP meeting, the morning that we did the whiteboard,
Yes.
I'm Naomi Bolton. The CIP is a subcommittee of the planning board.
Okay,
So they're doing what the planning board used to do. Because the
Okay.
presentation used to go directly to the planning board and all the department heads would show their presentation to the planning board.
okay,
So to cut it a little bit more is they appointed a subcommittee
okay.
called the CIP subcommittee. So the CIP subcommittee's done their job.
Mhm.
Now they have to give it back to the planning board for their approval.
Okay,
Then the planning board, from there, goes usually to the selectmen after they've met on Thursday, we meet on Monday.
so does the planning board do the CIP presentation to the Board of Selectmen?
No, the planning board's charged with doing the capital improvements program.
Okay,
So we opted years ago to make a subcommittee.
right,
So that's why they meet as a group in the subcommittee. Then they present the plan to the planning board, and then the planning board passes it to the selectmen. So virtually, they meet Thursday, we meet Monday.
okay,
And then you guys would have it. Because there's an opportunity, hasn't happened in the years I've been here, that the planning board, because it's their product, can make a change.
ah,
So until it gets to this one and to this one, then you get the final product, which will end up going before the voters.
okay, so if planning board can make a change, can you make a change to it? Meaning
suppose
the
we
Board of
could.
Selectmen, but.
I
do they-
suppose we could, but then it's got a lot of people that have done a lot of work. Why
Okay.
bother?
Okay,
You know, that's how people would feel.
so if planning board is coming to you, when?
Sorry, I put through my phone. It's my understanding that November is very fascinating anyway, because we have the fourth meeting is Thanksgiving, so.
Well, that's
So
when we're
it
slotted
appears that
technically.
planning board would meet the 8th and the 15th for the month of November.
Okay, so they would come see you,
They're gonna see the planning board on the 8th,
they who?
they meaning Jack
Yeah.
with the CIP, would go to the planning board to get
I thought he was
approval.
gonna see him this month.
He's not on the agenda for this month because we haven't finished it.
Okay, so he's November 8th for planning.
Then I'll throw another wrinkle into it. Because November 12th is Veterans Day, the office is closed, the selectmen don't meet on the
Right.
office closed.
That pushes us in, isn't that Thanksgiving weekend? we're
To the
talking?
19th would be Thanksgiving week. So you guys could meet after Thanksgiving in November.
Yep, because I got people coming for Thanksgiving. I've got-
Right, and that's a short week anyway.
Okay,
I'm looking at November for you guys. November, Wednesday's the 28th, Thursday's the 29th,
okay.
and that just ramps you right into weekly ones to finish up. usually.
Boy, we're coming in hard and fast, aren't we? Everything's taking longer.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So I guess first off, we need to talk about when do we want to have our next meeting? Obviously, the week of Thanksgiving is not convenient for me. I'm cooking. I don't know about the rest of the people here.
It's convenient for anybody, yeah.
Okay. Well, some people might say they've got nothing to do. Do we want to have it on Wednesday, the 28th? Does that work?
Well, that makes sense after the planning board is met with
Yeah.
CIP and selectmen, because it would kind of be silly to meet before that.
Yes, I agree, but I wanted to make sure everybody was on board with this. So Wednesday, the 28th, I will call Jack and see if he can make that meeting. Naomi,
Yes.
will the rest of the departments have seen you by then or not?
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
So I
On
already.
the 28th, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I sent out an email to the police chief. I need to know when it's okay to start inviting Benji to these.
Benji goes to the board Monday night with all his.
Okay, so I can
Fire
start,
chief goes the next Monday night with all his.
Bill and Naomi, you two have a better feel for CIP than I do. Will it take all night?
No,
No.
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 Hour, 45 minutes? I mean, could I load
Jack,
in,
Depends how many questions Jack has.
okay, but theoretically, could we have, say, Benji or the police chief
Why
on
don't you
the
make a
same
night
night?
of it?
If you do that, it'll be a very long night.
Yes,
Start early.
We can bring our long kids on.
yes.
But you could start earlier than 7 if it works
We
for you
we
guys.
could start, I don't know, we'd have to know, can
Well,
people,
they'd probably be there anyway, like Benji, because once Jack comes in to do the CIP, a lot of times the department heads are there to answer
Right.
specific questions, so they're already gonna be there, so you may as well.
okay, so figure Wednesday night's gonna be a very late night.
Do you want to start earlier? So we can tell Mary?
Can we start earlier? Does anybody have a problem starting at 6:30? Is that hard for anybody to make? Nobody's got basketball, baseball, football?
No, in between seasons.
Yes, I should say that in between seasons.
Okay,
6:30?
let's, 6:30.
Right, I'll have Mary put on the calendar.
Thank you very, very much. So
And then do you
CIP.
want the 3 larger departments to come with Jack that night?
I think so because
will anyway,
there's
because
gonna
of
be
their CIPs,
questions, obviously. But the intensity of going into everybody's budget in depth, I don't think we might have.
You would have it for a month by then?
Yes, but at that point, some departments require more scrutiny than others. Usually, fire is pretty easy. Benji's going to have more to explain on trucks and things. Certainly PD has things to question, and Parks and Rec will come in there somewhere.
Well,
So,
Parks and- I
go
hate-
ahead.
I hate to keep yelling from the back. It's
Well,
probably not
do you want to,
fair.
we have
No,
a
I'm not
chair
coming.
here.
Not coming. I
We
mean, I
have
think
room.
it's only fair, sorry. I preach it from the table, so. I'm gonna fix his board. Yeah, what was I gonna even say?
Parks and Rec?
All timers, any timers. The Parks and Rec and the smaller budgets is what I call a smaller budget,
Yeah.
are basically done in one evening
Okay.
at the selectman level.
Okay,
Because that's basically the rest of the departments. You have the 3 larger ones, and then the rest of them make another night's meeting.
okay.
So everybody, you'll have everyone's budget by Veterans Day anyway.
The fixed budget
Everybody
or
would be,
just
no,
the
everybody would be
budgets
through
proposed?
once
Okay,
by Veterans Day, which would give you guys, and I do have copies of CIP for everyone, the colored versions.
awesome.
The only thing I would just preface is an awful lot of information, and Bill typed out a lot of information regarding, this is only the DPW presentation. Now, there's 17, and I'm gonna entrust each of you with one, but I'm not making more if you don't bring it back.
I already had them, okay.
Okay. So, I mean, there's 17, it's a thick document, and they're all color, which doesn't do it justice in black and white, so.
Okay.
I have one for everybody, but when we do the CIP and they come in, then if you just please bring it back, because I'm not gonna make additional copies.
No, that makes sense.
And then, can I just say one more, couple more
Sure.
things? I think there might have been confusion. maybe on the budgets. I no means expected everybody to use your own ink and your own paper. We, basically like what happened this week. This week we had changes to the budget. Sean was here. There was changes made at the board level. For those of you that came, got one. Tuesday morning, changes were made per the recommendation. It got emailed to you again. But I have copies, even though you got it electronically, that I could be happy to put it in the box.
That would be
Or
great.
give it to you when I'm here, because I plan on being here. So for those that didn't get the default, I have some, and the revised budget that you got after the meeting, I have as well.
That would be appreciated.
Okay, so I
Thank
just
you.
didn't want, just a phone call and email if you want a copy.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank
So-
you very, very much.
You don't need one? Thanks
I
for
don't-
saying
It's
that.
just a highway, right? I mean, it's a road reconstruction.
Yeah,
one, right?
Lori, you get the one when you were here?
Yes, I did. Thank you
It's
very
just a
much.
road reconstruction, that's all I asked to make up.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass them down. What's that, two? I'm no teacher, so. Sorry.
Take one, pass the rest back.
Yep, one more on the table. Lori has one.
They're coming down.
We have enough?
Okay.
Well, I shorted somebody. Neil already wrote on.
Oh.
Well, we got-
Okay.
Yeah, we got three today.
No, I think we're
Yeah,
good.
and I'll, what I have, you're
We'll
missing
just
four.
keep it here, in case somebody walks in.
Yeah,
and
well, I'm gonna
feels-
stay until you're
Oh,
done
okay.
anyway.
Terrific.
And the selectmen have the same packet they put in their mailbox.
Okay.
Does
great.
anybody need a default one that was not at the meeting?
Anybody need default budgets? Raise your
I
hands.
didn't bring it till off. Yes, it's a thick document.
Naomi,
Is it the one that you emailed?
is this the CIP's
That's
recommendation?
just,
No, that's just DPW, it says right on that, road preservation and reconstruction. There's a lot of information in there. That's just the DPW part. Actually, it's really only part of the DPW part, because it's really only the road reconstruction.
right.
So, does anybody need, I mean, I can go make
Is that the
more
one that you
copies.
emailed?
It's the 10-page one.
Yep, I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
Tom, you need one? I think I got one. You guys were
This is
there?
the default?
Yeah, Jim, were you there that night?
Yeah, 2.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were, Megan.
I printed it off.
I wasn't, so I'll take one.
We'll just-
I got one of those, but what I would like is a copy of the revised
The revised what?
budget, the one that was presented.
This is just default.
No, I have the default,
You want the revised police budget?
the revised police budget.
Okay. Greg, did you get some?
Did these,
Yeah.
knows it?
10-1 in the corner?
Yep.
Okay, everybody's got the same? Do you need one?
It's different from the one we
10-1.
looked
It
at.
says 10-1 in the top corner.
I have 10
right, this
too.
one.
I have 10-2.
Yeah.
The one that you emailed
No,
out says 10-2.
the default one I have is 10-1, but I don't think we made any changes, so she emailed it on 10-2 at all meeting.
Oh, okay.
That's what she did.
So what you emailed me, Beth emailed me on the revised budget, I can download that at home?
I got the police
Oh,
one.
that'd be great, thank you.
This is revised again. We met the 15th, so it was changed for the 16th. So just take one and pass one around, and they'll come back to Greg. It's easier, it wasn't teacher. I hate saying.
But you do it well. Okay, so since we have set up meetings, we might as well, while we're looking at calendars, take a gander at December, because we are going to have a second meeting, we're gonna have to have 2 meetings in December.
The top corner, sorry.
Go ahead.
I already have it.
Tammy.
Tammy,
I
yes.
knew it was a T, I was gonna call you Tina.
That's fine.
The top corner would be the date after the
Okay.
selectmen made the rest. Yours should say 10/16.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
But going
Pass it
on
down.
this, I don't know that anybody would be excited about having meetings from the 16th on if we can avoid it in December, because usually people have family and guests coming in. And I'm just feeling practically, so I'm figuring we try to keep at least one meeting on Wednesday. We can either meet Wednesday, the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 5th, and see if we need another one on the 12th to get everybody in, or if we have to back up on that week, but the meetings will start getting longer. But are we good with this tentatively?
Mhm.
The 5th and the 12th? If we can, if
December.
we need to change it, we can. let's see, the 12th, we would not be able to meet in here because it's conservation. And I would have to be up there with us, and conservation could be down here because I sit on both. But,
You can send them up with a mural.
pardon me?
You have a nice mural up there, so send them up with a mural.
But, okay, so we pretty much got our meeting set up hypothetically.
Is that
And
gonna be 6:30
Should we
or
do
something?
6
could meet-
o'clock or is 6:30?
we're gonna have to wait to see on that month what it's coming in at. If we have, we're hoping we can do them from 7 through 10, but if we end up having a long presentation that's gonna require questions, then we'll bump it up, and we'll figure that out in November. We'll have a better handle on who's going to be coming to see us in December.
Okay.
Because they will have seen the Board of Selectmen. I will have sent out emails to everybody, and then we'll have to figure out which department's going to take the most amount of questions and how we're going to back them all up.
Okay.
Okay, good. Next question. Has everybody looked at the expenditures to date, the budget from last year, the default budget that we're working off of from last year? And has everybody received a copy, now that you've got it, of the proposed police department? We'll get to the schools in a minute. Something to remember, when you come to the Board of Selectmen's meeting and you know the police are presenting or fire is presenting, it's our job, and this is also for the schools, when you know that somebody's presenting something that's gonna be coming up. Oh, that was new. Remember, you need to look at what was last year, where we are this year, and start raising questions in your mind. What things do we need to know? Is it a valid purchase? How do we go about figuring out? Because what is proposed, it's our job to sort out the need and the cost and weigh it against what the taxpayer can bear. In order to do that, we have to raise questions to find out, can you give me a valid explanation to this? Can you prove that you actually need this? Because we can all want lots of things, and we'd all love lots of things, but our job is to weigh those considerations, and it's our job to ask questions. So when you come to meetings and you know somebody's presenting, go back, look at what's come up, ask questions at those meetings. You're allowed to. School is different. High school lets us ask questions. John,
Where?
thank you. Weare Center Woods is a little different, but if we talk with Marge and we give her a list of what we're looking for, she's very good about helping us answer our questions and be able to come back to this committee. And Marge comes and presents to us and has always been great about answering questions. The SAU comes up to see us. The other thing is, you guys can all reach out and make phone calls to these people. You do not have to run anything through me. You can call up Marge, you can call up Lorraine at the SAU, or Kathleen or Irene, and say, I'm on the finance committee, I don't understand this, I need this, can you make time for me? They want us to learn as much as we can, so feel free to reach out to those people. That's important, that's part of what you should do. Your job is to search, research, and figure it out. Okay? Making a face over there.
No, not intentionally. Okay.
I know, you're counting the minutes for the baseball game, I got it.
Not at all, not at all.
I would just like to put in something concerning that, and that is, when we attend meetings, we're there to gather information, not to make individual judgments. And so, until the information is brought back here and discussed, that's when there's a judgment made by the committee as a whole, not individuals making judgments on individual lines before the group as a whole has ever seen it.
The committee, each person in this committee can address a line item at any time, at any of those budget meetings at the Board of Selectmen's level. And if they have information that allows them to question on that line, that is their job, to raise the question,
Question.
and they can raise it there.
Question, not make a judgment, not make an opinion, but to question the information so that it can be brought back to here and clarified. You know, I mean, I don't have a right to go to, well, I'll say the school board rather than, and stand up and say, you know, you're wrong, that's not something you should be spending money on. I can bring it back here and say, we really should have more information on that before making a decision. This is what I got from the meeting. But then this group as a whole makes a decision as to whether or not to question the substance of what's being asked for in the budget, not any individual. In public, you can think it all you want, but as far as standing up in public and saying that this is wrong, you can't spend money on that. I don't think any of us have a right to do that without it coming back to this group.
Tom has a point, because even though you're only speaking for yourself, that may not be the way it's perceived. And it's very important, I think, that we keep that, again, as Tom said, think whatever you want, but at least as a group, until we make a final decision, as a group, we should be open-minded about these issues. At the end, we'll make a decision. If you say something publicly, it may be attributed incorrectly, but still, in fact, as a position of this group, and that will create all sorts of problems for us. So make no public commitments, and I know that for some of us, and I'm one of them, it's very hard to say something and, you know, not have an opinion on it. But by being on this committee, I think you've taken it upon yourself to act differently than you would as a private citizen.
I think it's very important, because I could stand up and say, I'm on the finance committee, and this is what to me, whatever we find, we should come back as a group and discuss it, just like Neil and Tom just said.
Right, and if we have dissension of what somebody's doing, we discuss it as a group at our meeting, not in public.
Right. But if I have something to say at the mic, I should speak for myself, not as a finance person, and bring the information back here, and then discuss it. That's my feelings. That's, again, my own personal feeling, not a finance person.
But do your homework. Do ask questions. Because a lot of what is presented, while it may be something that somebody would like, it may not necessarily be what is needed at the time by the rest of the town. It is very important that we get decisive, how did you get there? I mean, we could say we'd like 62, what did Keene get one year, an emergency tank or something? One of those things that for riots or something.
Bearcat.
Thank you. And, you know, theoretically, somebody could ask for that, but do we really need that? So it's something, it is our job to raise questions, and to raise questions about costs and those kinds of things. Very important. Okay, let's talk about our friends, the schools. Mr. Erf is not here. Can't talk about that school. There was a school board meeting with Weare Center Woods. Anybody from that group care to share?
All right, I didn't bring my notes. Just thinking about it. There wasn't much talk about, if anybody corrects me, about the budget. They were talking about they were going to start meeting and discussing the budget, I think in November.
Yeah,
And there was talk about the kindergarten, and that there's 3 approaches that they're looking to take. One was using their current footprint and moving the preschool to the high school or the middle school. And taking, and so because they will need 5, correct me if I'm wrong, 5 kindergarten spaces. And so they have, right now, if they move the preschool, they would have 4 because right now they have like 3.5, because one of the
Yeah, but
rooms,
they're not big enough.
all those 4 rooms are big enough, because they have to be between 1,000 and 1,500 square feet or something like
Yes.
that, so they're big enough. And then the 5th room, they're talking about taking the music room, because that's the only room that has that much square footage and has a sink.
Do
which
they
is
have to take a wall down to do that?
for the music room is fine. That's my knowledge at least. So that's one option. The second option was expanding the footage of Central Woods, and that's also kind of part of their talk about making Center Woods safer and the entrance safer. So that was a little confusing. They haven't quite decided, like, well, if we go with that option, that could be part of making Central Woods safer, so do we go with that option? So those are talks that they have to do.
It didn't sound like they did a lot of research into that option.
Yeah.
From what I gathered, there wasn't.
Or it wasn't really the option that they were really looking to go, because that would put all their eggs in one basket. It was like, well, we could go that way, but it's dependent on the town passing the kindergarten and passing the expansion of Center Woods.
And they've got contracts coming up this year, correct?
Yes, they have teacher contracts and the support staff contracts. And then the third option was portable classrooms, but it kind of felt like to me they weren't even thinking about that.
Are
option.
they exploring any options to offset the cost of this? This is talking about a lot of money.
They've explored grants and got several grants coming forward.
For safety.
Those are safety
For
grants.
safety.
Safety grants,
Safety.
we have
Yes,
some
safety
still
grant.
pending.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Marge. What'd you say?
I said we have received some safety infrastructure grants. We have some more that are still pending at the State House. One's awaiting the governor's signature and one is waiting to be reviewed.
How would they help with this whole puzzle piece, or is that later to come on and you want to talk to us? We don't know.
We don't know. It will probably, if we get the grant for the vestibule,
Okay.
that would be making the entrance into the building safer.
Right.
Much like we have at Weare Middle School. And so we have to wait until we hear from the state. And the decision that the board made last night was to proceed on the first option, which was to stay within the footprint and look for an alternative space for the preschool, either at the middle school or at the high school. And that would mean discussion with the principals in both those buildings and the John Stack School Board. And that's all sort of waiting to happen.
Okay, thank you. So they've got a busy plan to go with. Yes.
The only thing you were talking about so far was capital expenditures. The net cost in the operating budget, year after year after year, if we go with full-day kindergarten, after the state grant is considered, is $70,000. So regardless of whether it's, I think, option one that was discussed requires $13,000 of capital expenditure, too small for a bond issue, that would be incorporated in the budget. That's a one-time expense, and then year after year it would be $70,000 for the additional teachers. Because right now we have teachers teaching half-day.
Right.
We would put in additional teachers, total cost is $190.
Is that including the paras?
Ye-
Because they're going to have
If
paras
they're-
for kindergarten.
I don't know if that includes the cost of the paras, but we were told at the kindergarten meeting I attended that the additional cost would be $190,000, and round numbers, they expected to get back 115 or 120 from the full-day kindergarten program from the state, leaving a balance to be picked up by Weare taxpayers of $70,000.
Now, how solid is, you're in the State House, how solid is that program to get back money consistently every year?
Every year. The arrangement is that you get a minimum of $1,100 per full-day pupil, in addition to the $1,800 you're getting for a half-day pupil. So that's a total of $2,900. We're already getting the $1,800.
Okay.
This is an additional, if we go to full day, for each child who is full day, we will get an additional $1,100. Could be more if Keno takes off, but it will never be less regardless of what happens to Keno.
Now, how will that affect our property taxes? Because this money has to come from the state. The state has to get money from
It's a $70,000
us.
expense, and if, I forget what $70,000 is, it's so many cents on the tax rate. But that's, the other problem the schools have is, as you mentioned, the contracts. So this year, they want to go for full-day kindergarten.
Mhm.
They want a budget that does whatever it is they want to do, and they have to pay for the teacher's contract.
And the pairs.
And the parents.
That's a lot.
Last year.
And there's the energy efficiency.
But that could be tax neutral.
Right.
Could be. Last year, their approach was, this was the superintendent and the school board's approach, was to say the teacher's contract is so important to us because they want to avoid turnover, and they believe that if they pay the teachers, especially the starting teachers, more money, and there's a 3-year contract, turnover will drop from, 10% to 5% or 15% to 8%. But in order to do that, they came in with an absolutely flat budget, knowing that if the teacher's contract passed, the first year cost of that would be give them an X% increase and increase in the tax rate. As it turned out, the teachers couldn't reach a contract. The teachers and the school board didn't reach a contract, and therefore they had a flat budget.
Right.
I don't know what their strategy will be this year, but
They're going
based
to
on
have
last
to
year,
put their thinking hats on because it's a lot to ask.
I know that they very much would like to have kindergarten, but my guess is at the end of the day, if they want to get the budget and the teacher's contracts, they'll forego kindergarten, work very hard to keep the budget to a minimal increase, and hopefully this time come up with a good contract with the teachers that not only will the teachers approve, but that townspeople will support.
Right.
And when I say teachers, I'm including parents.
Correct.
I think that we're quite a ways away from that. The school board, I think they're still in the planning stages with the kindergarten as an issue, as well as with the, I don't know anything about the contract at all, but I think that it's premature to start turning thumbs down.
Oh, I wasn't. I was
He
just
wasn't
explaining
turning
the
thumbs
options.
down, he's showing how this works.
And I was explaining that based on what they did last year, I was predicting that they would be likely to do the same thing this year, since most of the time we repeat. We've made the decision.
It's wise
If it comes up again,
business
we do the same thing
decisions.
again. But that doesn't mean that they will. But I was just trying to explain the factors. Kindergarten is one cost factor, the budget is a second cost factor, the various teachers' contracts are cost factors. And they have to figure out
What's
something
most
that
important.
works for them and that taxpayers would be willing to support.
It's just like on the town side, we would like a whole fleet of plow trucks. We would like a whole fleet of police cars. We would like all new fire engines, but we have to balance these things. And that too has to come from the schools because it's the biggest driver of our tax rate. Speaking of tax rates, Tom, I'm actually going to have you on this one. They set the tax rate last night. Would you like to explain that, please?
I don't
You've
think
been
I brought
at that
with
for,
me.
I brought the paper, but you've had many years of experience, so how about you take it?
They chose option A, which gives just it's a 2 cent reduction in the tax rate. There were other options that would have reduced it more. I frankly got up and spoke in favor of being conservative with that because one of the things we've stressed over the years is to try to keep it as even as possible. And if all of a sudden you see a year, wow, we can cut the tax rate this year down, well, then another year comes along and you gotta have double-digit increases, and it's too hard to explain. You can't say, well, but look what we did last year, we saved you 2 cents. You say, well, yeah, but this year you're costing me 20 cents. You know, that's the problem with going overboard, with looking at the fund balance and saying we have all this money, let's apply it to the tax rate so that we reduce it. And then it comes back to bite you because that money's not there and you have additional expenses the next year and all of a sudden.
Also, is it not recommended that we
that-
keep a certain percentage on hand?
Yes, that's recommended anywhere between 5 and 17%, and we've gone in the 8-9% range, I think, as far as retention. And the reason for that is for cash flow. Otherwise, what happens is you have to go out and borrow, which is not terribly expensive because it's short term, but still there is an expense associated with it. you have to get a tax anticipation note, and in order to finish out the year and be able to pay your bills. So it's cash flow. It's not that you're overspending your budget, because you have to stay within your budget. But if you don't have the cash there, the cash flow available, because of when your tax money comes in, you can be in a spot of having to borrow in order to pay your bills, even though you're not going over your budget. So anyways, I've been conservative in the tax rate and not giving this away. And again, this is definitely my opinion. I'm not speaking for the board in the past or past members of the board. My opinion has always been that, and normally the board as a whole has gone along with that, so that we've tried to keep it as steady as possible. Speaking as a board member to you before, I know I've emphasized that we have the lowest tax rate in the region.
We like that.
And that's
I'll
good.
get a copy of
That's
that.
good too.
Can I ask Tom a question?
Sure, go ahead, then I'll answer your question.
I'm trying to figure out what's happening
So I
here.
need that back again, then I guess.
In 2017, the selectmen took $107,000 from surplus. As I read this, bottom chart, right-hand column,
Mhm.
voted from surplus, $107,184.
No, what that was for, that was the year the money was voted from surplus, means there was something taken from the surplus, put on the warrant to finance a purchase. And so that was the purchase of 3 police cruisers in 2017. And the money, there are only 2 ways you can use that fund balance. One is to have a warrant article, and the voters decide to spend some of it. And in this case, in 2017, there was a warrant article asking that $107,000 be withdrawn from the fund balance to purchase those 3 police cruisers, the first 3 that were purchased.
So it was $225,000 that was taken from surplus?
$225,000 was taken from surplus to offset the tax rate, which is, those are the 2 ways that you can use that if it's available.
And for 18, I can't see how much was taken, because if you look at A, it says 0, fund balance used. Is that correct? They took nothing from surplus to reduce taxes for 18 under option A?
I believe that is correct. But I wasn't, I didn't have a vote, as you know.
And what is the overlay?
The overlay is money set aside for tax rebates. In other words, if somebody comes in and they question their tax bill, it goes back to our assessors, and they reassess and they find that there was an error, so that we have to rebate some of their taxes. You always have to pay your tax bill by the date or pay interest on it. You can't get an advance rebate, but you can apply for a rebate by a certain date. I think it's March 1st. And then it's reviewed, and if they find there's been an error or you've been overassessed, that's usually the situation, then you're rebated the extra taxes that you've already paid. So the overlay is for those rebates.
I'm sorry, did you say it was 107 that was used for the cruises, or
Yes. 225.
225?
107 for the
Oh, I
cruiser.
heard you say 225, and I was like, wait, I was...
225 is the amount they took out of surplus and used to offset taxes.
Okay, I got
For
that part. I missed.
2017.
All right, I thought that he was saying that, I was like, wait, I thought you just said the 107 was police cruisers. Okay.
And Tom, do you know how much the unassigned fund balance will be surplus for 2018? I don't see that figure here.
For 2018, well, you see, what you're working off from is the auditing report from the previous year.
Right.
So if you look at the fund balance that's available, you're really looking at the previous year's audit.
Right, but I assume that the amount that we retained at the end of 17 was the opening amount for 18, the $1,628,000. And I'm just curious to know how much we have there. $1.6 million is a decent sum of money. to meet cash needs and so forth, and I'm curious to know how much we wound up with.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not close enough to the situation this time. It'd be
Do you
easy
know
to find
offhand,
out.
Naomi,
I didn't hear the first conversation.
on the fund balance? Neil, would you
I'd
like
have
to
to look
read?
at it. I didn't-
Go fish. Ask Naomi the question, Neil.
What is the unassigned fund balance surplus at the end of 18, at the end of
17, it
17?
should be, isn't it on there?
Oh, here it is, right at the very top, Neil.
Where?
1.2?
One, yeah, right
Yeah,
at the
but how
very
does that
top.
relate to the balance at the end of 17 on the bottom, which is 1628518?
Maybe when the audit's completed, that's what they actually had on hand versus the
It was something
anticipated.
to do with the classification
you.
of the fund balance, I don't remember.
Okay, if you look
We have
in,
new auditors this year.
if you look in the upper left-hand corner, I have a left-right problem, so you have to bear with me. But this is the left. Okay, the fund balance, and then voted from that was, and again, that was another police cruiser, that was the fourth one. That's where that 44,571 was. What's left in the available fund balance of 1,213,845. And that was the figure that was looked at as money possibly available to draw from to offset the tax rate.
But that was at the end of 17, so the January 1st of 18, the fund balance is 1.2. And if there's a significant lapse, money not spent this year, that would go to surplus and that would drive that up.
Right, absolutely.
Thank you.
Any more questions on the tax rate? Thank you, Tom. Does anybody have any questions on anything so far?
I did have one question, just on the
Which sheet are you on?
No, I was on the SIP stuff that came out about the SIP update, and it was just more of a knowledge question. So say like the highway department is asking for another
Thank
plow
you.
truck, and they're saying it's $215,000. Are we still paying on the one from last year, or was that paid in total last year, and this is going to be, so basically be kind of tax neutral? Our taxes aren't going to go up again?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay.
It's saying that because the trucks are bought outright.
Okay.
We had a couple of things that were financed. The grader was a big one because it's like $400 and some odd thousand. So that was paid for over 3 years,
And
with
is
the
that
last
done?
payment being paid for this year.
Okay.
The trucks are purchased outright in the given year. So you're right, if you buy a truck this year and it's $215,000 next year, it's not really a tax increase. It keeps, the expense would be the same as the previous year.
Okay.
Not that it's not there, but
Just want to remember to folks that God has not declared that taxes have to go up each year.
No, I
It is possible for taxes to go down.
Like this year?
No, and that's really my question, is that like when people see the $215,000, they're like, oh, my taxes are gonna go up another $215,000, and it's nice to, because we are the finance committee, we're supposed to know these things. Okay, it's kind
You're
of tax
already
neutral.
used to this.
Or yes, we're used to it.
The
People are
damage
already
has
used to
been
it.
done.
Yeah.
Any other questions? If you have a question for a department head, please call and leave them a message and make it short. They will come and present to us, but if there's something later on that you need to know, you can ask them. We just try to minimize how much of their time and day we monopolize. We generally try to monopolize them to death when they're here. But they're very good with us. If you need more information from one of the departments, you can notify, Naomi, would you want us to notify you on department stuff, or Beth?
Please notify me.
Okay,
It's easier instead of a phone call as an email, because they can sometimes get it on
Right,
their
but
phone
if they
and-
want a certain report because they're looking at something on one of the departments that we don't normally get, they're allowed to look at a lot of different things. Like one year Greg asked about maintenance things. I've looked at different things for PD. if they know that they can go to you and ask you, that helps, because a lot of times when you send something in an email, it gets worded one way, but what you really want is something totally different. And it's easier to explain it to you phone call to phone call as opposed to your
We were just
point.
talking about
Yes.
that.
I read it this way, she reads it that way. It's interpreted like this. Yeah, it's one of those. Absolutely correct. So does everybody have a contact number for Naomi? Do you know how to dial the office and get Naomi? Okay.
Speed dial.
The only reason why I said email is if by chance I'm not here, my phone gets it as well.
Okay.
That's the only, it's easier to, I mean, I do what I can do.
And the same goes for Marge and the SAU. You can call, leave a message, you can text them. They're good at getting back. They'd rather hear from us than be blindsided by something and vice versa. So, don't be afraid to reach out to them and say, hey, I don't get this, or I'm not happy about this. Can you explain it to me? They're very good about that. It is 10 of 8. Does anybody have any other new business? Old business? Motion to adjourn.
Approving minutes. from
Oh,
last week.
God, yes. We don't want to get into that again. Has everybody read the minutes from the previous meeting?
I move they be approved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstains? Good to go. Need a motion to adjourn?
No, you can just declare it.
We're done. Go watch baseball. I'm going home to eat cookies. Thank you very much.
Somebody's gonna turn that off.